From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8 Podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is your News 8 Daily 8 for Thursday, April 28th. Some rain chances for your Thursday, scattered throughout most of the day. Highs will be in the low 60s with winds a little breezy at times. And a man is dead, another wounded after a double shooting on the near northwest side. It happened at 30th and Kessler in a plaza parking lot around 3:30 this morning. Police say the victims are men. No names have been released, and so far, no word on a suspect. The death of a man in police custody is prompting calls for change from those who knew him well. Friends and colleagues call the death of Herman Whitfield III shocking and upsetting. Whitfield died Monday. IMPD says Whitfield's father told officers his son was in a state of psychosis, and an officer ended up using his taser twice to subdue him. Friends describe Whitfield as a world-renowned performer and composer and a masterful piano player. A man who grew up playing alongside Whitfield tells News 8 police need to change how they respond to mental health issues.
This is an opportunity where crisis intervention training for law enforcement is taken seriously, is done more frequently, is done in tandem with mental health professionals on the job, on the scene.
IMPD is investigating, and the Use of Force Review Board is looking into what happened. Indy Black Lives Matter released a statement saying, in part, a shift must begin to engage deep care of community in crisis, ensuring that they have adequate support for their mental health needs, that there are competent providers responding to those in crisis, and that the means to supply and exceed these needs is not excused away as a lack of financial resources. And today, a California man accused of grooming children for child porn is due in court. We first broke this story on Daybreak yesterday on Wish TV. Sacramento police say at least 11 victims live in Indiana, 2 in Indianapolis, 7 from Kokomo, and 2 in Hobart. Police say 24-year-old Demetrius Davis created a fake persona online named Lizzie. Police say he then convinced dozens of children to send him sexually explicit videos. One former FBI agent says it can be easy for predators like Davis to make connections online.
There's messenger apps on almost every one of the profiles that you can send direct messages to, and you can get that toe in the door, and then the foot, and then the whole leg, and so on, and that's how it happens.
Authorities say most of Davis's victims are between 6 and 13 years old. Jail records show Davis is not allowed to post bail. His court hearing is set for 3 p.m., which is 6 o'clock our time. The state will pay former state trooper David Camm $4.6 million. Camm spent 13 years in prison for the murder of his wife and children, but always maintained his innocence. Then, after 2 trials and appeals, a third jury found him not guilty. He sued the state and the state police, claiming prosecutors or investigators suppressed evidence and tampered with witnesses. Camm's lawyer says in a statement, there is not enough money in the world to compensate David Camm for what he's been through. However, when you get right up to trial and the opposition is offering millions of dollars to settle any case, you have to listen. Staffing shortages within local law enforcement agencies have ITmate raising questions over safety. The Marion County Sheriff's Office has 100 openings. Chief Deputy Reggie Roney says he has never seen a time when so few people are willing to put on a police uniform. This comes as the Sheriff's Department settles into its new home at the Community Justice Center. ITmate's Richard Essex asked Roney if there are even enough people working in the building to keep the peace.
We are on the bottom edge of staffing these people. That's why we are every day out here recruiting people, because we can do it, but we can't do it as well as we would like to do.
Roney could not point to any particular incident where a lack of staffing resulted in an injury of staff or inmate. Both IMPD and the Sheriff Department are offering sign-on bonuses to new recruits. The Sheriff Department also has removed age limitations for new staff. To the war in Ukraine, President Biden is set to speak later this morning about the war and America's support for Ukraine. Our multicultural spotlight highlights new efforts to welcome people fleeing their home country. The Uniting for Ukraine program is bringing 100,000 refugees to the U.S. To qualify, several elements need to be in place, including an American sponsor who can take financial responsibility for each refugee. Vaccinations, health screenings, and security checks are required. Several local groups are working to meet those needs. The International Center is linking those efforts together.
Our audience really cares so much about the international affairs in general. And so we want to keep an eye on everything that's happening so that we can be that connector for people.
People who like to sponsor a refugee will need to provide financial information and go through a vetting process to make sure they can provide enough support. Retired Marine Trevor Reed is headed home after nearly 3 years in a Russian prison. Reed, a Texas native, was convicted on charges of assaulting Russian police. The White House says negotiations to free him lasted months. In exchange, the U.S. released Russian pilot Konstantin Yaroshenko, who was sentenced for drug trafficking. Reed's mother called his return one of the best gifts she could have ever received.
It's absolutely the perfect gift. And when we got the call early in the week, when they said something might be occurring this week, and I said, am I going to have a happy Mother's Day? And they go, well, we can't say, but just, be ready. So, yes, it's a perfect Mother's Day.
Despite Reed's release, basketball star Brittany Griner and Marine Corps veteran Paul Whelan are still in Russian detention. Moderna, breaking this morning, has asked the FDA to authorize its COVID vaccine for children 6 months to 5 years old. Moderna says data shows the vaccine provides a robust antibody response. The company lists the most common reactions as a fever and pain where the shot's given. Moderna says it hasn't seen any cases of heart inflammation or myocarditis in this age group. The move to seek authorization means a vaccine could be available for the youngest children by summer. A new partnership with Indianapolis Public Schools aims to increase access to after-school activities. After School HQ just announced IPS schools will use its online platform. Parents can use the website to view, choose, and sign their children up for extracurricular programs. IPS says the change will help the district track interest in after-school programs. The district hopes to get 40% of its students involved in extracurriculars. And someone hit a massive Powerball jackpot, but not in Indiana. Powerball's website shows one ticket matched enough numbers for a $1 million prize here, but the $454 million ticket was sold in Arizona. No word yet who the winner is. The numbers are 62, 68, 61, 11, 36 with a Powerball of 4. The jackpot now resets to $20 million for the next drawing on Saturday. And as we do every Thursday, Inside Indiana host Gary Dick joined us for some business headlines this morning on Daybreak. Here's that conversation. The most talented in tech are being honored.
Gary Dick is the host of Inside Indiana Business, joins us once a week. We appreciate that. This has been billed as tech's biggest night, and it hasn't been in person for quite some time.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
So first time in person in a packed house at the JW Marriott last weekend, 1,500 people. They call it the Academy Awards of Technology in Indiana, really recognizing the innovators, the companies, the products from around the state. Some really interesting stories. We're going to profile some of them on the show this weekend. Here's one, a fifth grade teacher, a robotics teacher from Amish country, Napanee, northern Indiana. They told him to say, hey, we want you to do this robotics program. Knew nothing about robots, really immersed himself in it. This fifth grade team from Napanee, Indiana, competed and won the world championship. There were 12 teams at that competition, 10 from China, 2 from Napanee, Indiana, which is incredible. Which is an amazing story. There's another story we'll have too. African-American woman really busting into the white male-dominated construction industry, creating a company focused on equity and inclusion. First job, Cook Medical's new factory on the near northeast side. She achieved the unthinkable 100% minority participation. She's working on her next big project, IU Health, here in town. So just a couple of the really cool stories coming out of that event.
Okay, so West Lafayette is becoming a hub for the military to advance its pilot training.
It really is, and an aerospace hub to be sure. Of course, Purdue has this tremendous history and heritage in aerospace. And we're going to go kind of inside Saab's new aerospace plant there. Saab Aerospace, Sweden-based company, $30+ million plant. They're going to be, or they are rolling out a Boeing Saab new T-7A, the military's first digitally designed trainer aircraft. What's interesting about this story, you see Neil Armstrong there in the video, obviously that heritage, but there's a huge Purdue connection to this, a huge connection to the Tuskegee Airmen, the bravery that they showed as well, all compiled in this week's story.
As we look to the weekend, what else do you have on tap?
Well, again, we will be focused on the Mirror Awards and really highlighting some of those big winners. Also, Purdue's a big innovator there who has done any number of cancer drugs. He's got a new one coming out. And Razor Ed Carpenter, too, is partnering with Build for Tomorrow. They're really focused on literacy, in Uganda. Also from our partners at the Indianapolis Business Journal, keeping Indiana competitive. They'll have more on Dave Ricks, the Lilly CEO, and some of the challenges facing the state. They'll go inside the 2022 May primary coming up. Also, companies looking at $20 as a minimum wage as well. Those are some of the stories there.
And the stage is set and the purple carpet rolled out. Happening today, the 2022 NFL Draft starts in Las Vegas. Unless a late trade changes things, the Colts will sit out day one. They have 7 picks. None of them is first round. That's been the case for half of the drafts General Manager Chris Ballard has been a part of here in Indianapolis. Ballard has found several starters in the second round, though.
If you look at history, it's pretty similar. I mean, I would tell you that should Darius Leonard have been a first-round pick? He was, 36? Should Braden Smith have been a first-round pick? Should Pittman have been a first-round pick? Should Jonathan Taylor have been a first-round pick? I mean, and that's the grouping, you're kind of looking at right there. The difference in each draft, it's like the level of star player in each draft is different. So, last year with being, with that extra year of eligibility with COVID, we're seeing a lot more players. Yeah, there's a little more depth in the draft in totality.
Indy's first pick will be the 42nd overall. The Colts are hosting a special party for day 2 of the draft tomorrow. It's at Kilroy's in Broad Ripple at 7 p.m. There'll be a Colts giveaway, some drink specials, and more. And 2-time defending men's champion at Wimbledon can try for a three-peat. Organizers say Novak Djokovic is welcome to compete. He was not allowed to play in the year's first Grand Slam tennis event, the Australian Open, because Djokovic is not vaccinated against COVID-19. Wimbledon has no such rules because the United Kingdom does not require vaccinations. The tournament is from June 27th to July 10th. And finally, today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. This morning, we're hearing from a 90-year-old survivor. News 8's Lakin McGee spoke to Frank Grunwald, who lives right here in Indianapolis.
I was a very lucky 12-year-old.
Frank tells me his family's housekeeper hid these photos during the war. He often pulls them out of the wooden chest to look at them.
Here is my father and mother. The Nazi army came into Czechoslovakia in March of 1939. So I was about 6 and a half. Somebody found it in a museum, in a children's museum, and it's a sketch that I did when I was about 11.
11? You drew this? Can I see?
Yeah, that was done in a ghetto. The first camp that we were in the ghetto of Terezin. My brother and my mother died in Auschwitz.
At the age of 12, Frank and his family were moved to Auschwitz. He says he was aware he was at an extermination camp. He says the crematorium was running full time.
The heavy smoke full of ash was pretty much dispersing the ash around the camp so that if the wind was coming in the right direction towards us, we were covered by human ash.
Frank was in the part of the camp the Nazis used for propaganda.
We knew that we were good for about 6 months, and every 6 months they would basically gas 5,000 or 6,000 people, and then more people would come in, more families. My brother and I were both on the death row. My brother John was 16, I was 12. Directly in front of the SS people that were there, including Mengele, he grabbed me and moved me into a group of older kids who survived.
He says a man that was in the camp saved him, but left his brother on death row. His mother saw what was happening.
She knew he was doomed, and she basically elected to stay with him, and she died with him.
Now, looking back at his cherished photos.
Here is my mother and I. When I was about 5.
Frank would eventually move to New York City, marry his wife, have 2 boys of his own and 5 grandchildren, and retire in Indianapolis. What do you want people to know about the Holocaust?
Everything. Basically, it was the largest mass murder of a segment of the population in the history of mankind, and I think people need to know about it.
Again, that was Lakin McGee reporting. Grunwald told Lakin he also went through a couple different death marches. It's when you had to walk 30 miles with no food or water, and if you couldn't keep up, you would be shot. He's also kept a positive outlook on life. He says he can't change what happened, but he can now be a kind person and not judge others because you might not know what they've been through. This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway. Online at wishtv.com. And follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
This is the News 8 Daily 8 podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update on demand for even more on demand and on the go. Connect with Wish TV on Facebook at wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile app. Thank you for listening. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast for updates every weekday morning on the All Indiana Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcast.